So I do want to introduce my dear friend, Donna Dewitt, from the South Carolina AFL-CIO. You know, it's always great to have friends in labor who are anti-racist in their activities and make sure that all the unions around them are conscious and aware. So when I called Donna to ask her if she would be willing to join on with us, she didn't hesitate. And so we have the whole weight of the South Carolina labor movement, organized labor, here with us today. So please welcome Donna Dewitt, the South Carolina AFL-CIO.
I am so pleased to be here. And it's been a wonderful day. And I just saw my friend Kate Landishaw come in, and I'm going to ask her to please fill out a little card because I want her to speak, because I'm going to tell you how we connect with the South Carolina AFL-CIO, and I think our North Carolina. We've actually moved ahead, and this is a sad thing because I don't think we are gaining in South Carolina, but the real sad part is that our neighboring states in the South are losing union members. And North Carolina certainly has lost a lot in the tobacco industry and other industries. And so we have moved ahead. We have been ahead of North Carolina for some time in density. I'm also co-chair of the South Carolina Progressive Network, and I co-chair that with Representative Joe Neal of the Black Caucus in South Carolina. And we formed, and the reason I mentioned Kate's name, and I hope she's going to talk a little bit about it when she speaks up, is that we have an anti-racism transformation team. And I was so pleased with the results of the team presenting to my members at a convention. Now, we have a lot of conservative paper workers, and we have, you know, over the line here, we have the Bowater, Abitibi, I think it is, Abitibi Bowater now, and we have Midwest Baco, and these guys are very strong union members, but they're very conservative. And Kate can tell you that people don't want to admit they have any type of, you know, racism or discriminatory. They don't want to talk about that, and they don't see that. So I hope Kate will share just a few lines of that, and when she speaks on her question. But I want to say to Mr. Rashford too that I think Charlotte recognizes the need to address the economic stability, and they continue to move their community toward the diversity that's reflected. And think about diversity: the racing, the football, the baseball, the basketball, and the art that surrounds this region. Now, you talk about diverse, and you can talk about whether there could be some huge hate spots. That could be here, when you think about racing and football and basketball. But, you know, they have done a splendid job, you know, of embracing the diversity, and it's reflected in their communities and in this region. And they continue to attract those groups that are very diverse, but they also are making their homes in this region. And that's why it was so appropriate that this group was not accepted in Charlotte, North Carolina. It was the wrong thing. And I am very proud to know that the right thing was done. The right thing was done here. I want to just briefly, in my few minutes left, tell you that when I'm a retiree of what was Bell South, now AT&T. I saw AT&T go from AT&T, split off from Bell South and back after 30 years. I started on the board. And when I was elected, I mentioned this morning, I didn't know I was one of 3 women in the history of the AFL-CIO to be elected as president. It didn't matter to me. You know, I had the trust of my membership. So when President John Sweeney introduced me and said I was one of 3 in the history and only one of 2 living, I didn't know that. And I say to the young women when I was saying to them this morning to speak up and speak out, because many times we don't. Many times we don't. And we must. You know, my son would say to me, I said to him one day, I said, you know, I've always wanted to be able to just be a good listener like you. You have been so good at listening, and you've made really good decisions. He said, oh, Mom. He said, all my life I wanted to be just like you. He said, I always want to be able to speak up. I said, but I make so many mistakes. He said, but Mom, he said, you would never be able to accomplish anything if you hadn't made those mistakes. Or Well, yeah, okay. So, but you know, that conversation meant a lot. So you young women, speak up. And I want to say to you that one of the first things I encountered in office was a group called the Charleston Five, and many of you may have heard of it. But there were 5 international longshoremen, 4 black and 1 white, that were picketing in the ports of Charleston for their job because their work had been taken away from them. And those guys were indicted for conspiring to incite a riot. They were in house arrest for 18 months. They couldn't go to church, they couldn't go see their kids at school, play basketball or anything, or even graduate. They had to get special permission. And we took them on because we knew that this was a human rights and a civil rights. We knew what this fight was. And after 2 years, we won. There was a young militant leader. He looked that way. He was the first black to graduate from the College of Charleston with a business degree. He went back in as president of that local. And he didn't want to have to speak up and speak out, but we brought people in, just like we did here today. We began like this, and it went international, and those guys came, over 5,000 from around the world, to defend those 5 men. And in 2 years, we were able to free them, and none of them ever served a day, because we knew it was a violation of their rights. And we have to speak up. Today we can celebrate what was done, and we can continue the fight because we know that these inequalities, these discriminations, and racism exist more than ever. More than ever. It's there. And I know Mr. Luskin knows, he knows that. So I'm very pleased to be with you. I thank you for joining us today. And let's move forward. Let's move on. Let's make a difference in people's lives. Thank you.